Just buying Bitcoin doesn't make you a Bitcoiner. It's when I understood like this is the final trade. There's kind of like this moral imperative to like remove your energy and your resources from the system. Imagine everyone in the world has diabetes and there's only so much insulin in the world. If you knew that, wouldn't you buy as much as you possibly could for yourself and for your loved ones? What it always blew my mind is how do people graduate year over year with finance degrees and they can't put together what Saifedean just put together or what Mike Maloney put together, and you're like, well, they're not educated, they're miseducated, right? So they're starting from the position is like, just assume that the inflation is baked into the system. The deflation will just sink the whole economy. Then I just started like reading all these Bitcoin books, and everything that I've learned is what I think it is. Then I need to get rid of everything that's not Bitcoin for Bitcoin.
So people who are living paycheck to paycheck, how do you advise them to get the funds to put into Bitcoin?
The key to everything is to...
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bitcoin News Channel. I'm your host, Rob Wallace, and today I'm very grateful to be joined by Chris Johnson, veteran, entrepreneur, and creator of the Wealth Squad. He's one of the most viral creators in all of Bitcoin. And today we have the pleasure of speaking to him about his journey and how he got to be where he is today. Chris, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Cheers. Yes. So I've seen your content for years now, and you're often trading watches or houses or cars for Bitcoin. And, I mean, it's extremely, you know how to get the people to follow, to, raise some eyebrows and ask, what is this Bitcoin thing? Why is he trading all this wealth for Bitcoin? What's going on here? But before we get to all that and where you are on your Bitcoin journey right now, let's talk about your early life and how you started forming wealth in the first place. Because I've heard you say that even when you were making millions, you always felt like you didn't have enough. So I know that Bitcoin brought some peace to your state of mind, but take us back earlier. Growing up, what were the experiences or traits that you had that set you apart, that put you on this path of forming all this wealth?
All right, cool. So I'll start off with my childhood. I grew up, I'm the middle of 7 children. So both my parents were kind of like, in and out of prison, dealing with the street life. And they chose the street life in California over kind of, being responsible adults or whatever. So what ended up happening is my mom's sister raised us. And I know it's kind of a lot to jump right into, but it all plays a role, because what ends up happening is, when I'm 4, my father goes to prison, probably for like 13 years. And then my mom is sometime, whenever she's free, she's not locked up, she's raising us. And we would be, poor, like we're poor. And then around middle school time, my mom gets locked up, right? And when my mom gets locked up, we live with her sister. We move with her sister. And her sister lives like suburbs, like a whole different upbringing. And that was the first time where I started to realize like, oh, like you can actually make decisions in your life to improve your, your situation. So I seen a sharp contrast between where I was growing up and then when I moved in with my aunt. Think of it like you've seen the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, right? So think of it like the middle class version of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, where you go from living in the hood to like living in the suburbs. And when that happened, I just seen like, oh man, all those people that we were living around and living with, and they were struggling, and you kind of don't even realize that you're struggling that bad until you get around people who aren't. So then you start to realize like, oh, the difference between these two groups of people are literally just choices. Like this is some of it's information, some of it's opportunity, majority of it is choices, and that kind of like kickstart my mind just like working. And then directly across the street from my aunt's house, like throw a rock right there, there was an older man named Dwayne there. And one day he just comes and knocks on my aunt's door and he's like, hey, can you, send your nephew outside? So when I go outside, he's like, hey, I got some weeds to pick. Do you want to pick them? You can make some money. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I just go outside and I just started pulling weeds and stuff. But all the kids on the whole block had the same opportunity. And I didn't realize at the time I'm the only one that wanted to do it. I'm always down to just do something in order to make money. And this is how you would like put minutes on your phone or get a new shirt for school or whatever. You just had to work for it. And I already knew that like anything that I wanted, I'm going to have to work for. So one of the cool things about this story is this man, Dwayne, he takes me under his wing and he teaches me about life. Like I said, my father was in prison. So he takes me in as if I'm his son. And so we live in an area called the Inland Empire in California. So think about like LA's on the water, and we're about 60 miles inland away from the beach. And he would take me to Los Angeles, and he had rental properties in like South Central California. So I would see him picking up the rent. And this is, in the early 2000s where they actually had to write a check. And he would go and say, hey, I own this house and I own this house. And he was probably the first person I knew that was like married, So him and his wife did this together, that together. And it was just a big contrast from where I came from and like how I seen people living and what I seen people doing for a living, So what he did was he worked on these heavy machines, like let's say like cranes or excavators and things like that. And then he would take his money, him and his wife, and they would take their money and they would buy rental properties, or they would flip cars. He had like a classic car collection. He was really into this Mercedes-Benz thing. So he probably had like 8 cars. And then where I was coming from, nobody had a car. Like if your parents had a car, you were damn near rich. Like what? Your parents got a car? So it was just crazy. I'm like, man, these people over here that I thought were cool initially, they just walk up and down the block, go to the liquor store or whatever. And then when I come over here and I see him, I'm like, well, this dude has 7, 8 cars. He has houses. Like I didn't even know anybody who owned a home, like outside of my aunt. So it was just crazy. So fast forward a little bit, leaving high school, or towards the end of high school, my father's out of prison. And when he gets out of prison, my aunt sends me to go live with him. And we go right back to the same neighborhood that my mom got arrested in when she was doing what she was doing. So we go right back to the same block, same neighborhood, same everything. But this time my mind is more mature, so this time the poverty, it sticks out, So for you guys who are familiar, this is San Bernardino, California. So this is like, I can see now, I understand. First I was 12, 13 years old. Now I come back, I'm 17, 18 years old. And I'm like, wow, like I don't want to, be around here. But growing up, I was an athlete. So I'm thinking like, I want to go play college football. And it wasn't really going my way. So me and my older brother, we start taking like the city bus to different community colleges to work out the community colleges. So one day I'm getting ready to catch the bus and I see this woman in an army uniform and she's getting into a nice truck, right? And I'm sitting at the bus stop and I'm like, nah, I gotta go talk to her. Like she's getting in this nice truck. I'm sitting at the bus stop. She knows something about life I don't know, So I run across the street. It was directly across the street from the community college. And I run across the street and I just start asking her questions about like, so what do they do in the army? Like, how does this work? Like, do you wear your uniform all day? I didn't know anything, bro. So she's like, you know what? I have a son your age and he just joined. I'll call him and let you talk to him. So I'm asking him and, I'm 18 years old at the time, maybe 17 years old at the time. And I'm asking him questions like, so what do you do on the weekends? And how long do you work? And he's like, no, it's like having a normal job, except, you have to wear your uniform. You have to follow these different rules, but nothing too crazy. So I'm like, I actually like the sound of this and I can get away from here, So I end up joining the army. I just leave California behind. I joined the army. And when I joined the army, I just knew like, I didn't want to be broke anymore. Like I know what it's like to not have. I know what it's like to, when you're down to your last like dollar and you got to split it with your brother, you get some chips and, hopefully get a soda or something, or you have your last little few dollars and you got to use that to catch the bus to go back home, or else it's a 4 or 5 mile walk. So right when I joined the army, I was very focused on making sure I learned about money because I didn't know anything about, actual money. Like I didn't know how it worked. So when I joined, that was kind of one of the biggest things that I wanted to focus on, is just learning about money. So in that, I have a cousin who's a little bit older. What's crazy is in this story that I'm telling you, you're gonna realize that there's older people in my life who somehow, some way, always reach out and like pull me up. You
Ugh.
know, like as if they seen some type of like potential in me or something, but they would always reach back and like just different men. You know, they would reach back and like, hey, do this, make sure you're doing this. And I think that overall they just wanted to see me fulfill my potential. So I have an older cousin and he did go play college football. So this guy he's 2 years older than me, but he's hands down like the smartest person I know. And he's on Twitter one day and he tweets about, he's like, Zecco is the new Facebook. So everything that he ever said on Twitter, I would look it up. I'm 18, 19 years old. I'm like, what is this guy talking about? Like, don't you got a football game coming up? So I Googled what Zecco was, and Zecco was like E-Trade. It's like a place where you can go buy stocks or whatever. And I'm like, hey, you're into like stocks, like, what should I do? Like, can you teach me or whatever? And I'm thinking like, this is cool because this guy's, at a big university playing football, and here he is learning about investing, and he's like into aerospace engineering. He's just the smartest person I know to this day. And he's like deep in his finances. So he would be like, all right, read this book. So he would give me reading assignments, and on Sundays we would get on the phone and talk about what we read, or we would email throughout the week or whatever. And learning about the stock market early on, it eventually clicks for me that like, hey, all these companies, like if I wanted to put my money into Nike, for example, I need to speculate that Nike's going to make more money. In order for Nike to make more money, they need to release more products, right? Or they need to release or sell those same products just in a different area. Maybe they're going to expand to Eastern Asia, or whatever the case is. You eventually put two and two together, like, hey, businesses need to sell things if they want to make money. Okay, cool. So I go to Iraq for a year. I had to go fight in the Iraq war. I'm out there for a year, and I'm just saving all my money, and I'm just learning and saving and learning and saving. And uh, what was pretty cool about going to Iraq, well, I guess it's not cool, but what I did was I set up like a physical bank account, and this is when like online banking start becoming a thing. So I'll go to the bank before I leave. I set up an account, and I don't get access to online banking. So I can transfer money there, but I can't see my balance. I'm like, whenever I get back to America, I'll check, So, bro, I go to Iraq for 12 months, man. And I'm talking about that was insane. I'm still 18 years old. I go to Iraq for a year. I come home. I just go to the bank immediately and go to the ATM and check my balance. It's like $20,000, $21,000. And I'm like, man, in 2011, $20,000 for a 19, I'm not turned 19 out there. I'm like, I felt rich. So I went to the car dealership. I bought a Camaro, right? Like, of course, I bought a Camaro and I drove that thing around and I felt so proud. And then eventually, I sold the Camaro and I realized I'm like, wow. Well, actually, I think my cousin told me, he said, you went and spent all that time out there and they're the ones who benefit. Like they're the ones who came up. It wasn't you who came up. You were just kind of the medium to give them the money. I'm like, wow, I never even thought about it like that. So although I'm starting to learn about investing and that type of stuff, I'm starting to like watch what I spend. So they let us go home. We go home for a while. I grab, two of my closest friends, my younger brother. We drive to Vegas. It's only about a 3-hour drive to Vegas. Man, we're just having a good time, like going to the mall, buying shoes, all that stuff. I'm in California for about a month. And one day my card declines and I'm like, oh, there's got to be something wrong. Like it's got to be something wrong. Like I had 20 grand just 2 months ago. I blew all that money, man. I blew all that. And then it started hitting me. I'm like, wow, like that was a year of my life that I spent out there. Half of it went to the car. I put $10,000 down on the car. And then the other half I just blew on dumb stuff. And it gave me like a very solid, like there's a time swap thing, like spending a year in a war zone at 18 years old. And this is when Facebook's starting to get popular. So every time I log on to Facebook, my friends are having the time of their lives. And man, I spent all that money. So uh just but it put the perspective of like, hey, you're spending your life and risking your life in order to make some money, and then you turn around and the Chevy dealership benefits or the mall benefits, like everyone's benefiting you. Like now your car declines when you're out trying to buy things. Okay, so so I'm in Colorado at the time. That's where I deployed and came back from, Fort Carson, Colorado. And then they tell me like, hey, my time in the Army is eventually coming near an end. And they tell me like, hey, do you want to join, or do you want to go to Germany? And they're like, but you have to extend for 2 years, but you can go to Germany. And one of my other cousins, he was joining the Air Force and he was going to Germany. So I'm like, hey, if we're going to be on the same base, I'm going to take this assignment. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to Ramstein, Germany. So I'm like, all right, cool, let's go. Like, I'm a sign. So boom, I go to Ramstein, Germany. And when I get there, it was like everything just started to connect, because now I'm getting a little bit older. And as I'm getting older, I'm not, 18, 19 years old anymore. I'm 22, 23. And I know that I'm only here for 2 years. I'm here for 2 years, and then I want to leave the Army, good stepping stone, but I got to go. So I spend some time traveling throughout Europe, and I spent the first year doing that. And I would get money and spend it on trips, and I'm living life the way I should be because I'm in Europe. So then when the time got closer but on these trips, everywhere that I would go, so if I go to, I don't know, Rome, Italy, I'd go into the mall and I'd buy a watch, and it'd just be like a 90, 100 euro watch, and I would just buy a watch and I would have a collection. And that was like my little thing. And my friend out there, he told me, he said, like, I was complaining about one of the watches, like, oh, they should change the hands. He was like, bro, just make your own. And I'm like, wait, I can do that.
I wanted to briefly interrupt today's interview to give a big shout out to our lead sponsor, Rhino Bitcoin. Rhino is the all-in-one Bitcoin super app built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Buy or sell instantly. Send sats anywhere on the Lightning Network. Withdraw straight to cold storage. Even turn sats into gift cards or link to a Casa multisig, all within one sleek interface. And Rhino is just warming up. Soon, you'll pay bills, borrow against your Bitcoin, and save for retirement, all without leaving the app. Download Rhino at rhinobitcoin.com or tap the link in the description below. Use promo code Bitcoin News and Rhino will drop you $10 of free Bitcoin into your account today. Secure your stack with Rhino Bitcoin and enjoy the rest of the video.
Like, I'll figure it out. And I'm like, all right, hold me to that, bro. Hold me to that. I'm gonna do that. So for you guys who know me from Twitter, this is the guy No Time Zone, or Ace. So this is back in 2013, 2014. He's like, hey, like, just make your own. So the internet is blowing up. Social media is becoming more of a thing. And like I was saying, one of the lessons that I learned a few years prior is, hey, if these companies want to make more money, they have to sell more things. And then it started to connect to me like, hey, if I'm going to be on social media, I need to be a person selling something. I'm not going to just be on here posting my shoes. And, back in Instagram, that's what people used to post, like their shoes or their dog or I don't care to share all that stuff with you guys, like, unless it's going to brand me and, hey, I have these watches for sale. And I started to learn like, hey, there's a model where you can go directly to your consumer, right? You don't have to go business to business. So the technology kind of gave everyone like a sense of empowerment as long as you knew what you were dealing with, right? Because even to today, some people don't realize that the internet is technology that can, empower you. They think it's just a tool to distract you. Like you can find endless distractions on the internet, or you can find the information that change your life. So this is 2013, 2014, like I said, and I'm just designing. I don't know how to make a watch, but I'm learning, I'm designing. I go on YouTube. I'm like, hey, how do you design? I search YouTube, how do you design a watch? And there was a guy on there who was making YouTube videos about how to use Adobe Illustrator. And he just so happens to use like a watch. Let's say we're going to design a watch, like a watch case or whatever, or a watch dial. So I download Adobe Illustrator and I'm just practicing alongside of this guy. And every day I'm on it. And then my friend would always ask me like, hey, how's it going? How's it going? And I'm like, yeah, I'm trying, but like, I'm getting pretty good at this. So then, I'm starting to learn there's more components to building a business other than just designing. I start off just wanting to design, but now I'm like, well, I'm in Europe and my customers are going to be in America. Like, and then I learned like you can't use the on base, post office for business. And I'm like trying to figure all these things out. But the cool thing is that I have to figure them out. It's today there's a lot of people online who are like, hey, I can help you do this. I can help you do that. But back then it was like, you're kind of the first of your kind, or at least I'm the first of my kind. So there wasn't no one you can buy a course from or any of that stuff. Or at least I wasn't aware about it. I had to go learn it firsthand. So I had to learn about, setting up the business entities. I had to learn about, like paying myself out. I had to learn about how to set up websites. I had to learn about advertising and marketing. So I'm doing all these little things. What I'm not, realizing is these are all tools just to put in your, that will later on play a role in me making all this money. But so, I think I end up saving up like maybe another $20,000. You make a little bit more money when they send you overseas. So I ended up saving like another $20,000. I knew I was getting out. I'm building this watch company, and all in total, it cost me about $8,000 to build up this watch company. And I have 200 of the same, watch. I have one watch, design. I have 200 of them, and I'm like, I got to get to work. I got to get to selling these. But the cool thing is I had a little bit of time, so I'm not really in a rush to like sell them all, like I can still try to figure this stuff out while I'm still receiving my pay from the Army. So it goes, at first it goes well, like my siblings and, some of my other family members, they order. And then some of the people I work with, they order. And then there was this woman, Weehee, that I used to work with, and she was just the coolest person. And she said, hey, like, that people who don't know you are going to have to order if you're going to grow your business, And I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. Like, that's the whole purpose of the social media thing, And then this is when I come out and tell my unit that, hey, I'm getting out, like it's been a good run, but I got to go. And people are looking at me like, bro, you're about to get out of the Army to sell watches on the internet. Like, it sounds crazy, but now, 2026, it's like, oh yeah, you're going to go into the e-commerce thing. Back then, no, you sound like a lunatic, So I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna try. So I get a few more sales, but I'm starting to learn this, this whole social media thing. And I converted my personal page to like a business page, and I'm just trying, and I'm posting things and using hashtags, and I'm just trying anything that I can think of. And then one day I get a sale from somebody who I don't know, and that was that one sale, that first sale that came from that guy that I did not know. He was the 18th order. And I was like, wow, like, because think about all the people you don't know, like even if you grew up in a small town and you knew everybody in your town, and every single person you knew and every single person you went to high school with and all your cousins and their cousins all bought from you, maybe you have 600 orders. That's not enough to sustain, an entire company. 600 times 1,000, times $100 watch. That's a decent amount of money, but there's 8 point something billion people in the world. So there's more people out there that you don't know. So there was some guy he wrote a book, this Canadian guy, he wrote a book about mastering Instagram. And it was about like how you can grow your Instagram and all this stuff. And I think it was more targeted to like musicians, because that's what he was into. But he wrote this book, and I buy it, and it's probably $30. And he was just saying like, hey, you could do this to grow. You can do this to grow. This is before there was like an algorithm. So whoever posted last, you would see them, So I would post it, I'm running a sale or something, and then I would delete it an hour later and post it again. So I'm sitting at the top of everyone's feed all day long. I'm just little things that I'm figuring out in order to, like get some sales. But because I kind of had like this background in investing my money, and I had the experience of blowing, a decent amount of money, that I knew that like, hey, all this money needs to either go back into the company so I can grow, the whole enterprise, or that I need to buy some assets, and to know this at 23, 24 years old, you know, like, because I started learning about it when I was 18, and I'm like, okay, now I have, you know, a little bit of leeway. Let me just start adding into the stock market, start learning about, you know, like where I can place my money long term, because I'm starting, the momentum is starting to pick up. So then I eventually strike gold, what I think is gold, which is like, I don't need any more like help from the outside world. So what happened was I was using my GI Bill in order to go to school. And the GI Bill, they pay you based on where the school is at, right? So I live down in Southern California, and the cost of living in San Francisco is ridiculous, right? So I'm like, I'll just enroll in a school in San Francisco, drive up there every day, but they're gonna pay for my school and give me money. So I think they were giving me like $4,000 a month untaxed on top of paying for the school. So I'm like, I can use this to, you know, grow the watch company. And then because I knew at this point I'm starting to learn how to grow the actual social media account, I would go to like different fashion brands and be like, hey, I'll run your Instagram account for $500. And I'd go get 8 clients, you know? And I'm like, but the thing is, I can only come into your office once a week, you know? So I would spend 1 day a week driving up to San Francisco just to sit in class, that you can't be all online when you use your GI Bill. So I had to sit in class 1 day, and then I would drive over to LA to meet with some of these companies, and everything that I was doing and everything I was trying with these companies, if it was successful, then I would just go do it with my own brand, you know? So the thing is, these companies, they were all like B2B, right? So let's say you have like, I don't know, like a sweater brand, and you are selling into Macy's and JCPenney and, you know, all these mom and pop retail stores. And I would just go pitch them and say like, hey, the internet is becoming bigger and bigger. And if Amazon's eating all of JCPenney's like customers, then you're going to be first on the chopping block, because why would they not cut your brand and keep Adidas, you know? So you should go B2C. Like, you know, you should go directly to your customers. I'll help you set up the website. If you don't have one set up, I'll help you drive traffic, collect emails, all the things that I had been learning with my own brand. And then they would hire me, like I said, and I would make the offer so sweet that it was like a no-brainer. Like, give me 500 a month, give me 800 a month, like even give me 1,000. But then I would go get 5, 6, 7, 8 clients. So between the watch money starting to pick up, maybe I'm making $5,000 a month from the watch company, the school money, which was like $4,000, and then like the social media marketing company, and I'm dumping it all right back into the watch company, and it eventually takes off. But I'm documenting all this on Twitter, right? So on Twitter, I'm talking about this like, hey, I have issues with my manufacturer. Hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. On Instagram, that's kind of like the presentation. That was like, this is what I have for sale. But on Twitter, I'm kind of talking about it, and I start following other people. There were like drop shippers around at the time. Mm-hmm. So I would just like learn about all these things. And eventually, I think I run into some people who are into Bitcoin. I think maybe even Naval. I'm sure you know who Naval is, right? I think Naval is the first person I follow that mentions Bitcoin. So now this is like 2017. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. You know, I have some extra income. Like I can buy some stuff. I'm like, I really don't get it. It's internet money, but whatever, who cares? You know, let me make a buy. So I buy some, but then I also buy a bunch of crap coins, you know, and I'm just like, oh, well, what if this thing goes up, and what if this thing goes up? So that was like my first buy, but I didn't truly understand. You know, I didn't truly understand. I also back then would take money, and then whenever like a stock would get hit, like crazy, like a Boeing airplane crashes, Boeing has maybe 2 of them crash in 6 months, Boeing stock falls, I'll just dump a bunch in, wait for Tesla to post bad earnings because they suck back then, like dump it all in, and then just, you know, wait for the return. So I'm like, okay, I have a whole little operation going, you know. And my whole thing is I never wanted to go back either to where I come from or that feeling of like me swiping my card. So I know to stack this money. I know to put this money away. I know I have to save money. It would be disrespectful to all the things that I'm learning, all the time that I'm spending, learning all these things, trying all these things, failing, putting yourself out there, taking the criticism in public, all those things. So I was very headstrong about I'm putting my money away. So there's two parts to this system that, I've developed. And my slogan was get money and buy income. Like I would get money from the internet and I would buy income producing assets or, stocks, real estate, or even like some tech stocks, a little bit of Bitcoin, all that stuff. So now we're rolling to like 2017, 2018, 2019, and it's just more Bitcoin chatter, more Bitcoin chatter, watching the price run to 20,000 the first time, then watching it crash and just being like scared, like, oh man, like, okay, I'm glad I had some, but I'm glad I didn't put a lot in there, and then watching it run right back to 20,000, like maybe a year later. And I'm like, oh crap, like this thing isn't going away, but I didn't understand the problem, right? So for, you Bitcoiners watching this, I'm sure that, that when you're trying to orange pill people or when you're speaking with people, one thing that they don't get is the problem, right? So you're saying, hey, this is a solution. This is a solution for this, and this is a solution for that. But if you don't understand the problem, so I like to use this analogy that, like, imagine everyone in the world has diabetes, and we'll call inflation, the inflation monster, or the money printer, we'll call it diabetes. And there's only so much insulin in the world, right? Like if you knew that and you knew that everyone had diabetes and you knew where to get the insulin from, wouldn't you buy as much as you possibly could for yourself and for your loved ones? Especially like you have young children in the house. One day they're going to need the insulin. There's only a scarce amount of insulin, just hypothetically. So to describe the problem, like as I sat around on Twitter more, than people would describe the problem. And then I'm like, oh yeah, like I need to buy some more of this stuff, So I'm still doing my thing with the online businesses. I'm still trading. I'm still buying stocks. And the good thing is all these things that I'm buying, like you can sell them eventually in the future. Like that's the cool thing about assets is like the money and the work that I put in 2013 and 2014, eventually launch in 2015. And let's say I'm buying assets in 2016. Now I'm like, okay, I'm ready to sell this thing and buy some more Bitcoin here in 2022, So sometimes I know on the internet, it makes it seem like I have this unlimited income, but what I want people to realize is this is money I've already made sometimes, like sometimes this is money already made. So in like 2019, I made a tweet that said like, I sold a few watches and bought some computers, right? I went to a government auction and I bought like hundreds of computers and I sold those, right? So I took the watch money, bought the computers, got the computer money and bought some rental properties in St. Louis. Those rental properties I would eventually sell to buy the Bitcoin dip in November of 2022, right? So now there's like a paper trail of like you're trading things for better things. You're trading assets for better assets. Mm-hmm. And if I have that mindset of like, hey, this money needs to last me for a while. And if I was only just, shopping with the money or living the high life, I wouldn't have been able to, stack as much as I could when SBF created the major panic in 2022. Shout out to that guy, man, because he gave us some great buys. But yeah, so sometimes something I want to let the audience know. Sometimes it is income. Sometimes it's me selling assets that I've been sitting on for a while. Because, I'm 34 years old now, and I've been at this game since I was 18 years old, just doing and trying different things. So long story short, man, I've been on a journey.
Dude, that was awesome. What a story. And I think it encapsulates like so many lessons of what it takes to actually make it in this world, right? I mean, you've got insatiable curiosity. You're always learning. You're always trying out something new. You're willing to build in public and take the criticism and be willing to put yourself out there because people want to follow that journey, right? If you weren't showing your bumps and bruises along the way, you wouldn't be as real and people wouldn't trust as much. There's plenty of guys who go out there on the internet and say, hey, I've got a bunch of money, buy my course, follow me, and you'll be rich too. But it's the ones who are actually building real businesses and willing to show the hardship of what it takes to actually get there are the ones that build true trust and actually build an audience that lasts. So many lessons. And what's funny is that it ended up in Bitcoin, right? You kept trading these assets, one thing after another, to finally end up on the final trade, which is Bitcoin. But to get there, you had to realize the problem. And as you said, it's the diabetes, aka inflation, that is eating this world alive. And let's talk about that. So you studied investing, you learned stocks, you learned real estate, you learned those games, but it was really, there's something much deeper going on this whole entire time. So tell us about the waking up to the problem of what it is, the cognitive dissonance, and the pain that causes a lot of people to realize that the foundation of this whole system is a lie.
So, okay, so one thing I would say is as I'm making this money and I'm making like kind of like at the time what I would think is life-changing money, and every single day I woke up, I felt like I had to keep going. Like, and there would be points in times where people around me say like, "Hey, you have more money than most people in America." And I'm like, "No, because the cost of living is gonna, I just thought it was a natural thing. You start from this like the cost of living always goes up. So we got to get money. We got to get money. We got to put our money in assets because, the assets will grow like that. But you don't ever stop to think why, right? So you just think like you kind of think it's baked into the system. Cost of living goes up, right? Especially like growing up in California, you'll see now that you go back and look and be like, oh, well, these houses used to cost X amount. Now they cost, this amount. So I started to put it all together like maybe 2018, 2019, because people would just say things on the internet. I'm like, this can't be true. Like, let me go check. I'm a very curious person. So somebody, especially somebody who's smarter than me, would say something, I'm going to go look. So there were people like Zuby who would talk about Bitcoin. There were people like the Tate brothers who would talk about Bitcoin back. Those dudes had thousands of Bitcoin. I know they're probably not holding anymore, but they would break down the problem. And I would just start like learning. So when it really hit me that, hey, that we've been miseducated, it was COVID. It was COVID where you're like, oh, okay, well, the whole economy is going to shut down, but they're going to send money or bail out all these like large corporations, and then that's going to send the stock market up. But then the people are just going to get maybe like a little, stimulus check or whatever. And you're like, and where's this money come from? At the end of the day, where did it come from? Like we can't just snap our fingers and make money, right? If that were the case, then why does anybody pay taxes? Why does anybody go to work when the government can just snap their fingers? So then I come across this YouTube series called The Hidden Secrets of Money by Mike Maloney. And that was kind of like, whoa, matter of fact, when I was in Iraq, I watched Zeitgeist. Have you ever seen that? Yeah, I watched Zeitgeist when I was 18 years old in Iraq, and I was watching that, but it didn't really like click, like I'm just like, oh, it's okay, some crazy things going on in the world. But then when I watched The Hidden Secrets of Money, in episode 4 of The Hidden Secrets of Money, he talks about how if the first dollar is loaned into existence, you'll never be able to pay it back, right? Like if everything starts at zero and I say, hey, I'll loan you $1, like where did the dollar come from for you to loan it to me? Therefore, you'll never be able to pay it back. So, and then he, breaks down about how like the monetary supply is expanding and all that stuff. So I'm like, wow, like this is really like mind blowing stuff. So again, like this is 2020, this is during COVID, they're printing off all this money and I'm trading money in the stock market. And I'm like, man, everyone's panicking. I'm just posting all my buys. Like I'm buying different stocks, different tech companies, and I'm making money, but it's like something isn't right. Like you felt the big divide during 2020. You felt the big divide where there was a lot of people who had enough cash or cash flow to take advantage of all these assets being on sale. And then you had the rest of America that was kind of hurting, and you're like, wow, like this is creating even more division. And as the money prints and the assets eventually absorb that money, what ends up happening is the asset owners get wealthier, the rich get richer, and then the people who don't own any assets, like the saying goes, the poor get poorer. What ends up happening is the cost of living just goes up, and it's going to go up at a faster rate. It's going to go up at a faster rate than, that it used to go up. So you're like, wow, this is actually like insane, So 2020 was kind of like the first time that it really like hit me. And then I read the Bitcoin standard. Mm-hmm. So I read the Bitcoin standard, and that's like mind blowing. But one of the like most important things that you start to learn is like, oh, it's kind of tied to the whole education system, right? Because if you're taught from like the school of like Keynesians, right? So like if you're learning Keynesian economics, that's why people, because what it always like blew my mind is how do people graduate year over year with finance degrees and MBAs and all this stuff, and they can't put together what Saifedean just put together or what Mike Maloney put together, and you're like, well, they're not educated, they're miseducated, right? So they're starting from the position which I was starting from is like just assume that the inflation is baked into the system, just assume that these things will happen, assume that deflation will just sink the whole economy. So you start learning like, oh, okay, well, there's a whole nother school of economic thought, which is, the Austrian school. So I read the Bitcoin Standard, and the first time I read it, I'm like, okay, this is mind blowing. That was cool, but it didn't really hit as hard as the hidden secrets of money until the second time I read it. Like I like to go reread books because I'm in a different space. It'd be something going on in my personal life. So I'm halfway paying attention, halfway not, So then I just started like reading all these books, these Bitcoin books, and I'm like, this is actually crazy. So let's move forward to 2022, when the FTX thing happens and I watch Bitcoin crash from 69,000 to under 20K, and I'm like, this is my opportunity to like, get rid of a lot of assets, get rid of all the things that I've been learning, whether it was financially, whether it was about, the whole economic system, or it was about making money. All these things are now presenting me with a great opportunity to buy, right? So what I like to say is like, I'm not sure if you're a fan of football, but the Tom Brady story, right? Where Tom Brady's a backup quarterback to Drew Bledsoe. And when Drew Bledsoe gets hurt, Tom Brady gets in and he does his thing. But the thing about that is that the coolest part of that story is when Drew Bledsoe gets hurt, that's not the time for Tom Brady to learn how to play football. You already have to be polished. You already have to be working on your game. You already have to be disciplined. You already have to do all these things, right? So you're building the skill, you're building the discipline, you're building all the attributes that you need, and then the opportunity presents itself. So I'm saying, okay, if everything that I know and everything that I've learned is what I think it is, then I need to get rid of everything that's not Bitcoin for Bitcoin. Right. I need to go all in right now. Bitcoin's under 20,000. I'm like, I'm doing it. Let's go. So some of those rental properties I was buying before pandemic, I start selling those off. So I start selling off. I had a dividend portfolio of stocks that was like, these dividends would give me $151,000 a year. Like, and I'm like, no, it doesn't matter. They're not growing. The denomination matter. The denomination matters, right? Like, what are we going to measure this in? If it's just dollars, who cares? Mm-hmm. So I started selling dividend paying stocks, start selling tech stocks, everything is kind of just coming together at once. And every day I'm looking for more information and more information and more information. I'm doubling down on what I think I know. And I'm like, no, this is kind of it. So then outside of the financial thing, you start to realize, another thing I've realized, like reading, is that a lot of the problems, a lot of the issues in the world are just a result of the money printer. Like, so I read the book Fiat Ruins Everything, or The Hidden Cost of Money, and you start to see these things and you're like, wow, like this is kind of even deeper than the financial thing. There's kind of like, you have like this moral imperative to like do something about it, or at least remove your energy and your resources from the system. You know what I mean? Like, so then it starts. But I'm very vocal about this stuff on the internet, and I know I look like the crazy guy because everyone just watched Bitcoin fall from 69,000 down to, we got to 15,600, and I'm posting my buys. And the reason that I do that, for you guys who, will start following me or who have been following me, I don't do that to brag. I do that to show you that you have to be courageous, right? When the whole world thinks you're crazy, when the whole world thinks this is over, if you rely on going back to the Tom Brady thing, you rely on the knowledge, you rely on the discipline, you rely on the skill, and then you say, let me see, has anything changed? Are there blocks still being mined? Yeah. Like, is it still decentralized? Yeah. Like, okay, nothing's really changing. Like, can I still, send, I don't know, are people still running nodes? Like, yeah, like, okay, nothing's changed except the fiat price of this thing. I'm buying more, I'm buying more, I'm buying more. So I don't do that to brag. I'm doing that to let you know, like, hey, I'll lead from the front. Right?
Mhm.
I'll lead from the front. This thing goes down even lower. You know what I bought in at because I posted it, or like I'm down. Like I've been posting these buys for 3 years already, So, yeah, bro, it just, everything just came together at once. When I truly became a Bitcoiner, it was 2022. And so, just buying Bitcoin doesn't make you a Bitcoiner. It's when I understood, like, this is the final trade,
Mhm.
like, this is the final trade. And that was somewhere in 2022. And I've just been on it ever since, bro.
And were people calling you crazy? I mean, you already had a public persona at that time. And so going from stocks and rental properties to all in on Bitcoin when it's crashing, I'm sure you got a lot of hate for that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I have an investment community. And I was thinking this is like one day I was laying in bed. I was thinking, I'm like, okay, I know people are kind of like, oh yeah, Chris is talking about, the Bitcoin thing, but I'm going to trade or I'm going to, do real estate, blah, 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 right? And I'm like, I could just keep playing the game and hey, here's a stock trade. Hey, here's this and take the money and, buy Bitcoin, or I can put this out there and say, hey, there's nothing you guys are doing that's more important than learning about Bitcoin right now, you know? And if that makes you walk away from this investment community, so be it. It's almost like you see your family member like suffering from all the consequences of diabetes, but you don't tell them like, hey, bro, you have diabetes. You know what I mean? Like, we got to get you some insulin. So so there was like this dilemma because people are like, no, you're crazy. And I'm like, hey, there's plenty other investment groups out there. Like if you don't want to hear what I have to say, cool, but you followed me into this thing for a reason. Like you're trusting my leadership and you're trusting like my intellect and my instincts. But on top of all that, go double check everything that I just said. Like I didn't make any of it up. Like this money is legit just it's not even being printed out of thin air. It's just being changed in a computer code. Like what's the marginal cost of adding money into this electronic banking system? Nothing, is code, you know? So what ended up happening was some people did leave, but then as Bitcoin started to rebound, so I challenged everyone to get to 1 Bitcoin. That was my challenge. And, as we started to rebound, we bounced from like 15,000 to 25,000. And I'm very like vocal, like, hey, there's nothing more important. Get 1 Bitcoin. And, as the price goes higher and higher, more people are like, hey, bro, like I didn't even want to say this. There was a lot of people that followed me into it, but they didn't want to say it until like it had a good return. There were some people like, bro, when you were going crazy, I bought 9 Bitcoin. Bro, I bought this. I'm like, whoa, what the hell? Because sometimes to me, I'm just tweeting or I'm just posting in my investment community. I'm not realizing like, nah, man, those are like actual people in there who, are making their moves. So I have an account which I believe that I've created like between 12 and 1,300 whole coiners, you know, and if you think about 12 to 1,300 whole coiners, like that's crazy, like that's actually like insane. So I take a lot of pride in that. Like a lot of people in majority of my community are, black and brown folks. And I'm like, these are people who otherwise wouldn't even be interested in finance, who, thought that I was somebody worth listening to. So of course I'm going to like tell you, hey, I know I sound crazy, but please go read this book. I know I sound crazy. Please go watch this video. Like these things are like, it's out in the public, but you're not going to see it on CNN. So you have to go verify everything that I'm talking about. And the people who did and they follow me into this, and man, I did get a lot of criticism at first. I still do, because there's some people who are really into the traditional finance thing, like there are people who advocate for a high yield savings accounts over investing in the stock market, and they'll jump on my Twitter, and I'm like, I mean, you don't know what you don't know. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to help you, bro. Like this is about, because all this is about is purchasing power. Like you're trying to grow your purchasing power. You're trying to not be able to be censored. You're trying to be able to exchange value with whoever, whenever. And if you have an issue with that, then I can't help you. I'm not here to convince you. I'm just here to show you what I'm doing.
Yeah. And so that brings us to the present. And we just got done with 2025. Many people expected a blow off top up to 250,000. And that's not what we got. We got half that, 125,000. So were people in your community and your followers, were they disappointed with 2025? How do you explain to them what's going on with Bitcoin right now? And what's your outlook looking forward?
No, I like to say that I can tell you where Bitcoin is going. I just can't tell you when. Just be patient. We're going up, but when? Eventually. And the way that I think about it is I'll just put a number in mind. So hypothetically, when I was going crazy in the 2022 buys, I would just have the number of like 100,000 in my mind. I'm like, everything that I buy right now is going to 5x, eventually. So that's how I would like teach them to think like, hey, one day this thing will get to $300,000. Please like go do the knowledge so you understand why I think that. It's because people need to be able to store their money without being robbed, right? Like, are you going to store that in real estate? Are you going to store that in a painting? Are you going to store that in a collectible car, right? Well, there's limits to this and there's limits to that and there's taxes for this and so just think like people want the most, efficient way to store their life energy. So I was just explaining to people like, hey, eventually it gets to this number. Like we're at what, 89, 90,000. So let's say the number in my head is 300,000. I can't tell you when it's going to 300,000, but eventually Bitcoin will be 300,000. So you tripled all the money that you put in and then some, So, and when I say tripled the money, that means that life is getting more affordable. So I explain that to them, like it's not about you making more fiat, it's about you having more purchasing power. And if you have enough purchasing power to buy whatever you need and your family needs whenever you need it, you have created freedom for yourself, So no, people weren't disappointed. I think a lot of people, they kind of understand because there's so many whole coiners in there, and there were so many people that felt like the boat was kind of moving away from them. They're like, hey, this is an opportunity, because I'm still in there posting like, hey, be glad you have, another opportunity. You got a whole year of nearly sideways trading that you could stack up, because when Bitcoin, let's say one day Bitcoin's gonna be $1 million and it's gonna fall to 800,000, and people are gonna be like, hey, what are you complaining about, bro? You bought at $89,000, the same way that people who bought at $890, who bought at $8,900 are like, like we would wish we can go back there, So, nope, it's still stacking. We're still stacking up.
Cool, man. And so, I mean, you hustled so hard for a decade to get to the point where then Bitcoin hit and you had the funds to go invest into it. So I'm just wondering what your day to day is like compared to back, say 5-7 years ago when you were hustling so hard, and now that you found Bitcoin, what's the difference in your regular everyday life?
That's a good question. I have this tweet that said I used to wake up and trade stocks, and now I wake up and water my grass. And I sold that house, so I don't have no grass to water anymore. But that's what it is. Like what I used to do is I used to wake up, I used to scan the stock market, I used to look for charts, I used to look for setups, I used to check my email, check with my assistant, see what, because we would sell digital products, and then all that money that would come, we would trade in. So, I have my assistant working on, hey, any customer service things, let's take care of these things for these businesses. And then I have my watch company that now, my brother's the half owner in, I would talk to him in the morning. So in the morning, it'd be very chaotic. You wake up, you got the two main people, between my sister and my brother, like, hey, this is what we got to do for this. This is what we got to do for this. And then we have everybody in the investment community, the wealth squad, that's, hey, what's going on? Hey, Chris, what do you see? Hey, what do you think about this? Oh, what? And then I'm like, all right, but I'm looking at charts and I'm looking for the setups, and this is what I see. And now I'm like, wake up. I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna stretch, take my kid to school, like get a cold glass of water. I'm just chilling, So it slowed my life down, and it slowed my life down by a lot. And the crazy thing is, you know how the saying the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, but even think about if you had an abundance of time, then the smart will get smarter, right? Like I know that's probably not even the way to say it, but so think about it. I'm like, man, I have all this extra time. Let me go learn about other things, man. Like, bro, I lost 70 pounds. I'm like, let me just go focus on my health now. And then I have a 2-year-old that could read. I'm like, let me help show her how to read. Let's identify things. Let's spending more time with your family, spending more time with your kids. Like I fixed my sleep. Since I went to Iraq, I would stay up maybe to about 4 a.m. They have to turn around, wake up to check charts and stuff like that. So I'd always be like real groggy in the morning. And now I'm like, man, I'm sleeping good. I don't have this. It's almost like no matter how fast you run, so the running would be making money. No matter how fast I ran, I felt like something was chasing me, right? Which was the cost of living going up. And I don't feel like that anymore. I feel like, you wake up in the morning, overnight they printed more money, but they can't print more Bitcoin. Like it just feels like a sense of like security. So it slows down like my time, and it makes me focus on like quality, like everything just became, I started changing the way I eat. It's just so different, bro. Like living on the Bitcoin standards is different. It's even crazy because it affects your businesses. Like, hey, I don't have to raise my prices. You know what I mean? Like if I have a company and we take some of our savings and we're buying Bitcoin, well, now I don't have to raise the prices on the customers. So as the competition keeps getting more and more expensive, we're like, we'll just keep our prices the same. Well, I'll do business with who I want to do business with. Like I'm not in the fiat race anymore. I'm not doing things I don't want to do in order to get money, because the money that I've saved is in the hardest asset ever, and now I get to just kick back and relax.
Yeah, and you are in a fortunate position because you put all that time into building this wealth and then had it to invest into Bitcoin. But many people today are still scrounging, paycheck to paycheck, trying to make it. And you were sort of at the forefront of that e-commerce, social media business, doing all that. And all that has evolved over the last decade or so. So people who are in that position where they're living paycheck to paycheck, how do you advise them to get the funds to put into Bitcoin? What should they do today to get started?
Solve problems. That's the key to everything, is to solve problems, right? So if you think about it, somebody out there needs a new tire. Somebody out there needs their house power washed. Somebody needs their driveway plowed. And somebody needs something, and you as an individual have a unique set of talents. Like everyone watching this probably has something different that they offer, but you have things to offer to other people. And that's exactly what you go do. If you need to go power wash a few businesses, the side of their buildings for free in order just to create some buzz or something, go do it, but it's all about solving problems. And that's something that I want people to know. And that's something that I teach people in the Wealth Squad, that the whole money creation, and, because some people say, oh, you just take membership money and you buy Bitcoin. I'm like, yeah, but I'm solving a problem. Like these people want financial education and I'm here to give it to them. Right. And you should do the same. If you know how to build websites, cool, go build websites for other people or help them learn how to build websites. If you're good with robotics, so be it. If you used to be a boxer and now you want to train people, you have to solve problems. And we'll never run out of problems. That's the whole, thing about being a human, is that we don't run out of problems. What problems are you, or what things are you slightly better than somebody else at that you can help them, right? Or what things can you learn? What skills can you learn? So I've created like this trifecta. I call it like a trifecta. It's like my triangle offense. But you start with a product, service, or information, right? So a product, for me, I sell watches. Service, right? I will do X for you. I'll build a website for you. I'll run your social media accounts. These are the things that I've did to make money. Product, service, or information. I'll teach you about this. I'll show you how to cold storage your Bitcoin. I'll do this for you. Whatever. Product, service, or information. That's step one. Step two, you need a place to sell it, right? I figured out my place to sell it was on the internet. right? Some people sell things in Facebook groups. Some people sell things on Reddit. Some people sell things on Twitter. Some people don't even use the internet. They go, door to door. So you got a product, service, and information. You got a place to sell it. And now you need to generate traffic. How are you going to generate traffic, right? So generating traffic could be guerrilla marketing. You could be, I have a friend that I play basketball with. He asked me the same thing. He has a company that they install surveillance cameras at people's houses. I said, go pay one of your little guys, go pay them $200 to go to every single Walmart, every single Best Buy, every single Target that's in this city and have them post flyers, print out 1,000 flyers, put it on people's thing. He generated $45,000 from that, right? Like $45,000. He was into renting cars to people. He had a Toro business. He sold off his cars. He focused on growing the income for his business, and he stores his money in Bitcoin. And this relationship started off with us playing basketball, and I'm like, don't you think people want to feel secure in their home? That's the problem that you're solving, right? So he had to go get his hands dirty. Well, he paid his little guys and his cousins, whoever, hey, just go put these flyers on people's cars, and offer them a discount. If they found this flyer, here, I'll do it for half off. Here's my, but you're solving problems, right? So that's what it boils down to, man. You have to get up and think like, what can I help other people with? And another thing I talk about on Twitter is think about all the selfish people. All the selfish people that you ever known in your life, the most selfish people, they're all broke, right? It's because they only think about themselves, right? This is why when you meet people who are wealthy, they're always kind, they're always nice, they're always like, chill. There's some assholes out there, but for the most part, when you meet people, you're like, oh man, they're pretty cool, because they understand that business and wealth is about helping other people. So that's why I would say, go solve problems.
Yeah, and back when you were a teenager, Dwayne had a problem. He had weeds, and you were willing to go out and pick them.
Yeah, exactly. He had a lot. And he always had them when Saturday morning cartoons were coming on or football games were coming on. I would learn like, hey man, just go knock that out real quick. But those were things that he taught me very early on. Is like, be useful.
Yeah. Wow, man. Well, that was a masterclass right there. So many lessons packed into an hour conversation of how to start with very little and grow into a great success, with Bitcoin being the final trade. Absolutely amazing. So, Chris, yes, if people want to find more about you or the Wealth Squad, where should they go?
So on Instagram, I'm Chris with 4 S's in Johnson. Right, CHRISSS Johnson, and then on Twitter I'm CJ_Johnson. I think that's it. But yeah, you'll find me there. Find me on social media, and just kind of sit back and break down what I'm doing, what I'm talking about. And you'll start to understand. If you watch me long enough, you'll start to understand. Like, oh, I understand. This is a system that he has, and so you'll be able to pick up some gems and see what I got going on.
Cheers, man. Well, I got to have you back sometime. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks for the invite.
Cheers.
Thanks for making it to the end of the video. If you could drop a like and a share, it would help in our mission to accelerate adoption. If you're looking for more Bitcoin signal, join over 10,000 readers of our newsletter, Bitcoin News Weekly. Every Monday morning, we send out the biggest headlines of Bitcoin to keep you in the know in under 5 minutes. Links below in the description. Then come hang with us live every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern. We break it all down live on stream with a new guest, and you can add your 2 sats in the chat. See you next week.